communication, where we are and how we can improve. As we all know, communication is everywhere. We engage in it every single day, from emails and letters to presentations and group projects. Effective communication allows for ideas and information to be shared, as well as that information to be understood clearly. Now, I'm sure we've all had our experiences with poor communication. Unfortunately, it can make you feel confused, frustrated, unmotivated, and even defeated. It can sometimes feel impossible when you're trying to convey to someone a message that is not being understood clearly, or it's not being taken the right way. Unfortunately, in the workplace, poor communication happens quite often. These misunderstandings can cause high stress levels, unmet needs and expectations, arguments and relational breakdowns, low morale, and even unsatisfied customers, which could wind up not being very good for the company. Out of all of these symptoms, I'm sure that each and every one of you has felt at least one of these. It's unfortunately a common occurrence. There are so many communication channels in a workplace that it is easy for misunderstandings to happen. Luckily, there are solutions that can help. So let's break this down a little bit, because there are many different factors that can influence the effectiveness of our communication. So first, there's rhetorical awareness, which is basically just one big word that means understanding the purpose, audience, and context in which you're communicating. So language and tone is the next one, which kind of goes along with rhetorical awareness. The tone is created by the language you choose to use when presenting a particular subject to a particular audience, and the language is chosen to create tone, which depends on the purpose and the point you're trying to convey. Next, we'll go over cliches. I'm sure we all have our own ideas of what a cliche is. In writing or in more formal communications, a cliche is a phrase that has been overused time and time again so much that it has truly lost its meaning and effectiveness. And lastly, we have organization and user-centered design. These are two separate ideas, but they go hand in hand, so for today we'll group them together. Organization and user-centered design both have to do with making a communication, more specifically a written communication, flow and introduce ideas in a way that makes sense and is easy to understand. Now, you may be asking, how can these benefit me, and how will these benefit us as a workplace, in a workplace environment, and coworkers? Why will incorporating these simple skills into our communication change it for the better? When we incorporate effective communication into a workplace, many things are likely to happen. Employee morale, satisfaction, and engagement will be built, understanding will improve, misunderstandings will become less likely, and processes will become more efficient, therefore reducing costs. Overall, improving the working environment. Now, all of this sounds great, but how can we incorporate these things into our everyday work activities? And it's actually quite easy. So let's go over some of the ways that we can do this. So I'm sure you remember early in the presentation I mentioned a few different ways we communicate in the workplace. We're going to revisit some of these and go over how we can improve in each one. So emailing is something most of us partake in every single day, often without much thought. Emails are often short and convey a simple message, but it's still important to incorporate good communication tactics. Since they're usually short, language and tone is going to be very important, and if your message is urgent and needs to be addressed quickly, you're going to want to think about how you can convey that through your language and tone. So let's look at an example. So here we have two emails regarding a similar situation, but they each use very different language and tone. So if we step back, let's take a look at it from the recipient's shoes. Which email would you rather receive? If you thought the second one, I'm sure you're the same as many of us here. This email is a good example of using language and tone to communicate effectively. Instead of using harsh language that can come off as rude, like this first email, The second one acknowledges the recipient's feelings and asks their question in a way that still conveys a sense of urgency. Next, we'll look at presentations and how we can communicate more effectively through them. And also, presentations don't happen super often. It is still important to know how to use them to communicate effectively. So here are examples of two hypothetical presentations. So during this first presentation, the speaker keeps their attention focused on the slides. Their slides contain lots of information and they do not have any pictures. At the end of the presentation, the presenter concludes without taking any questions from the audience. And now for this second presentation, the presenter maintains eye contact with their audience. They keep them engaged by asking questions. Their slides are colorful and contain lots of graphics and bulleted lists. At the end of the presentation, the presenter asks the audience questions and answers any questions that they may have. And this one is actually much more effective because the presenter engages with their audience because they kept user-centered design in mind when they created this presentation. Lastly, we'll take a look at team projects. Communication during team projects is absolutely crucial to the success of the assignment. The communication among team members must be efficient and engaged in often. So for this last one, I'm going to give you details about one hypothetical group presentation. For this project, the team decided to delegate work among its members by letting each member choose the topic they wanted to cover. Once the work is split up evenly among the members, they each get to work separately. They work on their topics individually and they come together right before the deadline to put everything together. Once they feel that their work is put together in an order that makes sense and sounds good, they are ready to present their work. During the presentation, each team member presents their information and all seems to be going well. It's going very smoothly. At the end of the presentation, they are each asked questions regarding the project. However, the members struggle to answer questions that do not pertain to the information they compiled independently, and they end up receiving a subpar evaluation based off of these questions that they were asked. And so why do you think that this is? It sounded like they did everything right. They delegated their work, they came together to compile all of the information, and they each presented their information very well. This team failed to communicate with one another. By completing their work alone, not discussing everything as a team, and failing to educate one another on each section of the information, this team failed to work effectively. Now, with all of that being said, each one of us will need to keep this information in mind and will need to be much more mindful of the way that we communicate. So following today, I will be conducting a communications training session in which all of you will be provided with the knowledge and the tools that you need to be a more successful communicator. Thank you.